Welcome back to my kitchen, and welcome back to part 2 of the 3-part series where I am showing you how to make a really nice vegan Indian meal, including perfectly cooked basmati rice. That was part 1. If you haven't seen that, click up here or wait till the end of the video and you can click on it at the end. Part 2, which is going to be this one here, which is vegan naan. And then part 3 is going to be a chana masala, and I'm going to have it with the rice and the naan. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to get 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. And when I usually get flour out, I kind of rough it up and lay it back down, and then try to get a leveled off cup like that. And then when I go back in for the 3/4 cup, I'm just going to get as close to 3/4 as possible. I know usually you want to be really precise with baking, but this recipe is very flexible for people like me who tend to have a problem with using measurements. If you watch much of my videos, I don't really tend to measure anything because I just know the recipes that I'm cooking really well. So 2 teaspoons of sugar here, and we're gonna put all these dry ingredients into a bowl and then combine the wet ingredients and give it a mix. We're gonna go 1 teaspoon of salt and about 3/4 teaspoon of baking powder. All right, like I said, very forgivable recipe, doesn't necessarily have to be perfect. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna give that a mix with my hands here. And you could use a whisk. I just don't feel like grabbing one out, to be honest. And this will be perfectly fine. If you've never had naan before, it's really good. It's an Indian flatbread that gets served. It's usually made with yogurt, which makes it not vegan, but because you can use vegan yogurt, you can make naan. So it's really good as a vessel for different Indian dishes like curries and like the one I'm gonna eat, which is a chana masala. So like I said, next component is that yogurt. This is Kite Hill yogurt. If you've not tried Kite Hill brand plant-based dairy products, you should definitely try them. Their almond milk yogurt is really good. I used it. I used the vegan cream cheese in my tofu scramble recipe, and it was really delicious. So check that out as well if you want to. I'm just gonna put the lid back on here and give it a nice shake, just to make sure it's nice and well incorporated. Okay. We'll pull that lid off, and I usually just open it up partial part of the way, excuse me, and I'm going to do about 1/2 cup of yogurt here, and I usually just eyeball this, and that looks about right. Okay, like I said, it's a flexible recipe. You can add a bit more flour if it's too wet. You can add a bit more yogurt if it's too dry. And we're going to do 2 teaspoons of oil, just a little bit more. All right, and that's literally all of it right there. That's all of the rest, all of the ingredients you need. I'm gonna throw this over here, and now we're just gonna bring it together. I'm gonna use my hands. I find that using your hands is just much easier with this dough. You will get some yogurt stuck to your fingers, but as you work this dough, you'll just start to incorporate it into the flour, and that yogurt will come off your fingers, and really it'll turn to dough on your fingers, and you can strip that dough off pretty easy. So we're just gonna want to mix this together, work it through, like I said, use your hands and just squeeze and combine that dry flour with that wet yogurt. And it does take a bit of bringing together before it seems like it's gonna turn into a kneadable ball of dough. I've made this recipe numerous times. It's so quick and so easy to make. I would have included it all in one video, but I wanted to keep each video slightly on the shorter side. So in the last video, showed you how to make the perfectly cooked basmati, and that was, I think, all in all, it came out to about a 12-minute video. It'll take you about 20 to 25 minutes to make that. While your rice is cooking, you could do this this dough recipe really fast and bring it together, and you could pretty much cook the entire vegan meal that I'm doing in 3 videos in about 1 hour roughly. So just bring it together. You see now it's starting to come into more of a ball of dough. And I'm gonna get some of these bits off my fingers so we can work those in. And like I said, if it's too dry, just add a touch more yogurt and incorporate that in. And if it's too wet, just add a touch more flour and bring that in. Because you do want this to be a somewhat wet dough. It'll just feel slightly sticky. And mine right now is feeling just slightly dry. So I might actually add in a little bit more yogurt. A little bit more yogurt's all we need. All right, there we go. Okay, now work that into the dough. And you can double this recipe. You can double and triple it, and it makes a good bit of naan dough that you can just kind of wrap in saran wrap and pull it out and roll it out and stick it on a griddle or in a pan. And you're just gonna need a touch of flour. So this is kind of what I'm talking about with this recipe. Just add a little bit as you go. And I'm just gonna rinse my hands real quick so that I can grab a little bit of flour out. All right, touch of flour just to bring it together. Finish it up. There we go. Now it's starting to stick to my hands, so I know it's getting close to where it needs to be. Just gonna knead it out some more in the bowl here. Might add just a slight touch more flour. Just a little bit here. And if you've never tried to make dough before, don't be intimidated by it. You know, you may take this situation right here where I'm having to add and take away and add and take away and say, oh, you know, it didn't come out right. But you know, this is kind of the way it is with dough. Sometimes it can all come down to the way you measure the flour. Some people have different means of measuring flour with a measuring cup, or the most appropriate way to measure flour is always with a scale. If you have a recipe that calls for a certain amount of grams of flour, that's really going to be the best bet. And just a touch more flour and we are pretty much there. There we go. Beautiful. We're going to flour our work surface a little bit here, just so that dough can absorb a bit more as we knead it on the counter. A couple teaspoons. And go ahead and grab your dough with a nice floured hand. Pick up all those loose bits and just slap it down in the flour there. Okay, so we finally got that to come together. So you see now it's not as dry, it's not cracking, and it's not as wet from the standpoint of sticking to my fingers. And we don't need too much more flour than that. It's probably good. So what you want to do is you just want to start kneading it. You just want to pick it up, roll it over itself, squish it down, pick it up, roll it over, squish it down, pick it up, roll it over, squish it down. And as you do that, you're working the gluten in the dough, and it's starting to become a bit more smooth and a bit more elastic. And you really want to knead this for about 4 to 5 minutes. So that's what you want your dough to look like here. It's got a nice consistency to it. It's smooth, but it's still stretchy and chewy, kind of elastic like that. All right, so when I finish it like this, I just take it and slap it down on the table and kind of take my hand, the sides of my hands, and tuck it in under itself like this. Tuck it in. Just to kind of make a ball of dough here. just like that. Okay. Gonna get a little bit of plastic wrap. And we're just gonna get a sheet just to cover the dough while it rests. Just like that, all right? So we'll leave the dough there for about 10 minutes and I will be right back. All right, we're back and our dough has rested for 10 minutes. We're gonna take it and put it up here on this cutting board here. We don't need that saran wrap anymore. I usually like to flatten it out a little bit, just kind of push it down with my hands, because the next thing we're gonna do is take a knife, or in this case my little bench scraper here, and I'm gonna cut it right down the middle. Just cut that dough down the middle like that. And it doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical, but then we're gonna go down the middle again, and we're cutting this into about 8 pieces. Down the middle again, and one last time, like that, okay? So this dough will get you exactly 8 pieces of naan, and these are just about perfect size from my experience with this recipe. So for right now, I'm gonna cook 4 of them. I've got a couple of things heating up on the stove over there. I've got a griddle pan, or a griddle cast iron pan, a flat griddle, and a regular cast iron pan. And so we're gonna try all 3 of those, and we're gonna see how that the naan comes out. I'm gonna roll these into a ball, and like I said, I'm only gonna do about 4 of them, and we'll do 4 that are around the same size, and leave the other 4 smaller ones for later. Like I said, you could just wrap those up in saran wrap, put them in a airtight container or something, and stick them in the fridge, pull them back out, let them kind of come to room temperature, and then exactly what we're going to do here, which is I just need a little bit of this flour on my board from earlier, just like that, and take your ball of dough, flatten it out with your hands on top of that flour. And I use just a can of, these are a can of chickpeas or garbanzo beans here, and I just start to roll it out with the can. And you can use a rolling pin if you don't have, or if you prefer to use a rolling pin. I find that the can of chickpeas is just a little bit better of an option for rolling these naans out. And you want to get them pretty thin because they will rise as they cook a little bit. So if you leave it too thick, it will be quite a chewy kind of doughy situation, which we don't want. So just keep turning it and using your can of beans or your can of tomatoes or whatever to roll out the corners and the edges. And we're going for, if I had to give it a size, I'd say somewhere between eighth inch and 1/4 inch in terms of the thickness. Probably closer to 8 inch though. So just roll it out just like this. All right. And you can get them in squares. If you roll it out like I'm doing here, you could just roll it out into kind of like an oval shape. Just see what you're cooking it in, and then kind of see what shape will fit the best. That way you can fit as many of them into the pan or the griddle as you can. And it's just about where we want to be here. One last little roll. All right. So like I said, roughly, and you can pull it a little bit just to get it evened out, roughly about 1/8 to 1/4 inch. And in some places it's a little thicker than others, but that's okay. So I'm going to cut here, and I'll have all 4 of them rolled, and then we'll cook them off. All 4 of our naans are rolled out here, and you can see they're just in little tiny circles. And we're going to take them and we're going to cook them. So let's go over here to our cooktop. Like I said, I've got a cast iron, a griddle, and a cast iron griddle over here. And I've had those preheating for the last couple minutes here while I was rolling them out. I want it on about a medium low, and the flat griddle in the middle there probably about a medium, because I'm going to put 2 on there. So lay these down here. I'm going to use some olive oil, and just going to do drizzle of olive oil, and a drizzle of olive oil there. All right, so we're going to go first one on the griddle, cast iron griddle pan. I just want to make sure it gets some nice olive oil on the bottom there. And the next two are going straight onto the flat griddle. Just rub the olive oil in, just like that. And these won't take too terribly long to cook, probably 4 to 5 minutes. And then last one in the cast iron. And we'll want to just keep an eye on them. Like I said, medium to medium low for the 2 cast irons, and then about medium for the griddle. And meanwhile, I'm gonna get some garlic ready. Now we're gonna make a little garlic butter to put on them when they come out. You can also chop up a little bit of cilantro to put on them and top them, and that comes out really nice as well. And it also goes well with the other flavors that you tend to eat with naan. A lot of Indian dishes get topped with cilantro, get garnished with it, and it's really lovely. To have this garlic butter on these naans just really takes it up a notch, just to be able to kind of brush it on there. And I'm struggling with the garlic here today. Like I said in one of my other videos, I don't like peeling garlic, but I do it because I love the taste of garlic. And it's very much worth it, despite how frustrating it can sometimes be. But we're getting them peeled here one at a time. All right, here we go. Let's take our garlic over here. Let's get our pan heating up back there. Just a small saucepan on about medium low, and olive oil in. And I'm gonna do as well a little bit of butter. Probably about half olive oil, half butter for this particular garlic butter. Nice little blend. Okay, so then we're just going to take our garlic and use the little zester here and just zest some garlic straight down in there. And you don't want to get this saucepan back here too hot, because you could cook the garlic, and you don't really want to cook or burn the garlic. You just want it to kind of sit and warm in the olive oil and butter. And this stovetop here is super hot with all this stuff going. It's kind of burning my arm a little bit, but it's all right. As much of this garlic as I can. And you could mince the garlic, but I like to use this method. It gets really tiny pieces of garlic, kind of like using a garlic press, which is very convenient. All right, that's good. All right, so boom, just like that, a little bit off the top there. All right, so we're gonna get a little spatula here, or wooden spoon, and I'm gonna turn the heat down back there, because like I said, I do not want to burn or cook the garlic. I just want this to kind of come to heat and be available for me whenever these naans finish cooking, so that we can brush them with a bit of oil or a bit of butter. So you can see all that nice garlic that's been sort of grated in really nicely and evenly throughout that oil and butter. So let's check on our naan, and best way to do it is just with a little pair of tongs. Just make sure on a non-stick cook surface like this griddle here that you don't use something with metal. You use like Teflon or wood. We'll check on this guy first. If I can get under there. Okay, we're getting some nice grill marks on there, so I'm gonna let that keep going. Check on our cast iron. That one looks really nice. I'm gonna go ahead and flip it and let it cook on the other side. And let's check our griddle pan here. Oh yeah, very nice. Flip these guys. Make sure they've got some oil for that other side. Just kind of work them around. And just kind of push down on any places where there might be bubbles forming, so that you can make sure it cooks evenly and consistently. And I'm gonna turn this guy up a little bit since he's taking a little longer. And we'll be okay with that. That's pretty nice. Try to get it a little bit more done on the other side there. Okay, so just let this cook for a couple minutes and we'll do one final cut here. Okay, so here we are. We've got our naan that is finished cooking. Like I said, I've got one here that's from the griddle, from the cast iron griddle. This one here came from the cast iron skillet, and these two came from a flat griddle. Not a whole lot of difference in the final three, but you've got those nice grill marks on the first one from the griddle pan. So, got our garlic butter here, garlic butter slash oil, and we're just gonna pick a bit of it up. Make sure we get some nice garlic on there, and just baste these pieces of naan in this delicious garlic oil. You can use this garlic oil, sort of garlic butter recipe for pizza if you want to do that on pizza crust before you bake it, or you could just use it to dip pizza in, kind of like what comes from Papa John's. They always serve that really creamy, garlicky garlic butter with their pizzas, which is oh so good. I haven't had a Papa John's pizza in a long time though, but of the understanding that their pizza crust is actually vegan. So it is edible for vegans. So, all right. So we got our garlic butter on there. Last thing I want to do is finish it with just a pinch of salt on all four of them. All right, and we'll line them up here. Make them look pretty. There we go. All right. So that's the final product. That is our vegan naan to serve with your basmati rice, and the dish that's coming in part 3 of this video series, which is the chana masala. So let's give this a bite, and hopefully I don't burn the crap out of my mouth. Wow. It's so light and fluffy. It's got just a slight bit of a chew to it, as you can see from the inside, but it's thin enough to where it's not like it's not chewing on a dense dough. It's a nice light, kind of risen, slightly risen dough that's very fluffy, kind of pillowy in your mouth. And then the outside with that garlic butter and a little bit of salt to finish it off, it's perfect. If I had a little bit of cilantro, I would have chopped it up and put it on there, but I'm saving that for my chana masala because I'm running low. So yeah, that's the vegan naan, and really hope that you enjoyed this recipe, and hope you watched part 1 as well, and hope you stick around for part 3. I'll put part 3 at the end of this video when it comes out, and so that you can click on it. But yeah, if you enjoyed this recipe, if you're gonna make these vegan naans, give me a thumbs up, and consider subscribing to my channel. I post vegan content daily, stuff like this, stuff like the perfectly cooked rice, the tofu scramble, a lot of the other dishes that I cooked last week. And follow me on Twitter. I'm at PO Chef. So part 3 is coming right after this video, so be looking out for that, to eat some chana masala with some basmati rice and some delicious naan. So thanks for hanging out, and I'll catch you on the next one.